custom live streaming.
Oh, we are? Oh, okay. So sorry about that, everybody. Hi, Newport Film fans. We're so glad that you joined us again on this, our third week of virtual events. We are absolutely blown away by the response that we're getting to our virtual screening. So please keep tuning in every week. We're going to be bringing you a different documentary to be streaming from the comfort of your homes. And then we'll always be doing a Q&A with the film's director or subjects or people involved in the film. So it's my pleasure tonight to introduce you to two incredible women that I've had a great opportunity to chat with a little bit earlier tonight. The director of Be Natural, the untold story of Elise Guy Blaché, which I hope you've all had the opportunity to stream on newportfilm.com. If you haven't watched it yet, you have a little bit more time to see it tonight for free through our site. And then Pamela, the film's director, will tell you about some other ways that you can see it and tell your friends, tell everyone you know that you saw this incredible film. It's a great honor to be doing this live streaming Q&A in partnership with the Preservation Society of Newport County, our wonderful friends who are so, so good to us. So I'm thrilled to be joined tonight by the Director of Museum Affairs and Chief Curator, Leslie Jones. Hi, Leslie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And also with us on the phone, and unfortunately in the live stream, her photo isn't showing up, but we're joined by the film's director, Pamela Green, who's chatting with us tonight from California. Hi, Pamela.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. So the other people we want to give a big shout out to tonight is the incredible collaboration between the Rhode Island Department of State and the Rhode Island Council for the Humanities, Shall Not Be Denied, which is a year-long celebration of the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. So there are events all across the state, now all happening virtually, celebrating the incredible history of so many powerful and incredible women who influenced everything about us. So what we want to chat with Leslie and Pamela tonight about is how this one incredible pioneer really influenced the history of film and what happened to her. So Pamela, can you tell us quickly just how you came across this film topic?
Yes, I did not go to film school and had no idea about any of this. So I'm saying that because if you're interested in a subject, it doesn't matter that you don't know if you're passionate. That's what's gets you going. But I had seen a special called Real Models about women pioneers in cinema on AMC 10 years ago. And it was Barbara Streisand, Minnie Driver, Hilary Swank, Susan Sarandon, and Shirley MacLaine all talking about different women. And Shirley MacLaine was talking about Alice Guy Blaché in a very footnote, but inspiring enough for me wanting to know more. And then from there, I was obsessed.
Yeah. It's a really incredible story, and we wouldn't have probably even known about this film's existence if it weren't for the Preservation Society. So Leslie brought the film to our attention when they were planning for their symposium, the symposium that would have happened. Can you tell us about it, Leslie?
Yes, so today actually was supposed to be the starting day of the 28th annual Newport Symposium that the Preservation Society of Newport County has been putting on for 28 years. But unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we were forced to cancel for the safety of everyone involved. And as part of the symposium's theme this year, which was titled Movers, Shakers, and Makers, Women in the Arts, we were trying to look at a lot of the untold stories of women in the arts, especially in the US. But that also creates a cross-cultural dialogue as well, with Alice originally being from France, but doing a majority of her work in the United States. So we were very excited to screen this film with the partnership of Newport Film at the symposium, but I'm just glad that I was also able to watch it from the comfort of my home. So thank you, Becca, and thank you to your team for making this possible. You know, there are so many questions that I have for Pamela, and I'm going to try and keep it brief so we can make sure that whoever's tuning in can also ask their questions. But you know, one of the first things I noticed about the film was when at the very beginning there is a sense of time travel, and we're going in reverse from what film is today back to what the origins of film were. And I'm wondering, Pamela, from your research into Alice's career and also the origins of filmmaking, what are some of the really interesting parts of the history of film that you've learned along the way?
Oh, that's a really good question. How it wasn't even taken seriously, how it developed from photography originally. Alice worked at a photography studio before they got into moving images, and it always takes a village. There's so many people that were doing all these crazy experimentations to figure out how to film and to figure out how to project. And in order to understand and to be able to tell the story, I really had to learn a lot about the origins of these scientists, these kind of, I call them the first class of Silicon Valley of 1895, because they're techie in a way. There's a Steve Jobs aspect to it for me, because people said, who's going to use computers at home? And, here we are off of our phones, and, it's expanded to all these different things. So I learned a lot about the era of the people, because you assumed that everything was slow, and not that it wasn't interesting, it was, but really how ahead of their time they were in their thinking. They just didn't have the tools necessarily to execute it. So that was fascinating to me, to be able to read some of these people's diaries, look at some of the photos, and just connect to people and all those things from 100 years ago. I felt a little bit closer as I was working on learning about that era, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, and that's one of the things I noticed about from watching the film too, is this took place over 100 years ago, but there's still so much commonality in the narrative that's compared to today. I could feel myself, and I'm sure you did as well, connecting with Alice throughout her story, with struggles she went through, with the type of society that she lived in, and that she constantly felt the need to prove herself and prove her work, which I just thought was incredible.
Yeah.
And I have to say too, I love how you put so much effort into showing clips of the film. I feel like I really got to know Alice as a person through some of her film, if that makes sense. You're sort of seeing her eye and seeing, her style. And I didn't know if that was intentional, if that's what you were hoping to communicate with the audience, or if it was just because you loved the clips, as of course we all did that as well.
No, that was intentional. She had an amazing sense of humor.
Yes.
And, even when she's a detective trying to find who stole her scripts. I mean, there's all these different things that she says. She's funny, she's dramatic, she has charisma, etc. And her films are the evolution of cinema in a way, because as she's growing up with cinema herself, so is her work. So I really wanted that to be kind of a parallel, but also show things that there would be no other person that would have made that film except her, because of her personality traits, because of her experience, etc. So you really get the sense of her. And I met her when I first started the project, but I wanted people to get to know her by the time they were done. So it was through seeing her and through her body of work to really get to understand her as much as we can.
Absolutely. You could sort of have a sense of empathy and connection with her, going through her life motions of losing her father so young, and then supporting her mother even at such a young age. I feel like she was a trailblazer even outside of the film industry, the way that she took control of her life from the very beginning, as well as even when her marriage started to fall apart. She still took control of her destiny, which I think for a woman in the early 20th century and even in the mid 20th century is quite remarkable.
She was definitely, very determined and motivated to make a change. So I think circumstances either can make you a survivor or someone who can't get through it. She's definitely somebody who ignored the obstacles and focused on the possibilities.
Absolutely. I think you communicated that very well in talking about her life story. I thought it was also great to see all the genealogical research that you did to find her family members. And I was particularly struck by her grandson-in-law, I believe, from Arizona, who said that, sort of under his breath, that no one would care about these things. You can take them. That just, I mean, it sort of took me aback a bit, but I'm sure you were thrilled.
Because there weren't that many family members left, it's true. And, with Alice, her children grew up with a governess. That's another thing that's very unusual about her. She wasn't a stay-at-home mom. She went to work. She brought in the money, etc. So I don't think really liked the industry because they wanted their mom to be, home. So they were a little bit unhappy about the career, but also nobody thought that silent cinema was something of importance and thinking about saving any of this stuff. So, she did what she did, and then she was a mom, then she was a grandmother, et cetera, et cetera. So, that she lived her life, which it's good to see, even though she was looking for her films and it's heartbreaking, she still lived a full life.
Mm-hmm.
Pamela, sorry, Leslie, since you finished production and you've been taking the film around the world, I imagine, have you had people come up to you with other films? I know by the time the film is finished, you say that she made 1,000 short films and then 20 feature-length films. And by the end of the film, you had found maybe 10% of them. So I'm sort of wondering what the status is now.
Okay, so she wrote, directed, or produced 1,000 films.
Wow.
Started, there were 130 something. Now there's 150.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that those were all available to the public.
Mm-hmm.
There is one DVD that's out. It doesn't have all the French films. And my distributor, Kino, just released many of her American films, but not all. So when I made the film, I wanted to make sure that I showed as many as possible because, first of all, I want you to see how many things she's done, but also I didn't know exactly when her full body of work would be available for the public. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard anything yet, any new findings. But, these archivists around the world, they're pretty incredible. And I think more will be found, even though 75% of silent films are gone.
Yeah.
I still hope that we can find more. Thank God she came to America and had another 10-year career and distributed them all over the world. And hopefully one of those countries will look in the archive and see the Solax logo and, et cetera, et cetera.
That would be amazing. We do have a question in the comments section of people on the live stream, and feel free if you have a question and you're watching at home to ask, but we've got a question from Jamie Burgess, who I went to college with and love dearly. She said, what do you think that Alice would have thought of Portrait of a Lady on Fire?
I'm sure she would have loved it. She might have been Catholic and conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, some of her subjects, a sticky woman, a woman's licking stamps,
That was my favorite, by the way. I truly laughed out loud.
It's hilarious. And then she made a film called Consequences of Feminism in 1906, but then she remade it in America, where it's called In the Year 2000, Where Women Are in Charge. That film does not exist. Maybe it'll be found. But just the still of it in one of the articles looks amazing. So I think she was all about progress. I think she wanted more women in the field. I know that she wanted to start a film school. She did speak at Columbia, and she was all about that. So I think she would have loved it. So there you go.
That's That's great.
What I thought was also interesting at the very end, from a historical context perspective, that I never realized was the monopoly that Edison had on the film industry, and how that's sort of what forced the migration to California. I thought that was it was a very brief part of the dialogue, but I thought that was incredibly fascinating. You must have picked up so many interesting bits and pieces of the history of film, and even then the history of the United States, through just trying to find more about Elise.
Yes, he had sent out detectives that would make sure that they were using his cameras. I mean, it was really like goons going out there, etc. But it wasn't really him as much. It was more his investors.
Hmm.
So it's everything is never one thing, right? So it's always a combination of things. So definitely that, but also California had better weather, better prices, less people as far as the industry was concerned. So there was much more space to go create and shoot westerns in really good weather, but also, yes, not having Edison on your shoulder was very helpful. And to make the films and content that you wanted to make versus making stuff over and over again, uh, versus being original.
Which I think ties in perfectly to her motto of "Be natural." That was, I love that, seeing that strung throughout the entire narrative that you created, and it really made me look even at acting and history of acting a bit differently, because there was a comment by one of the participants who was speaking about they finally looked at film as not necessarily being overly dramatic and theatrical, but it was about natural human instinct and emotion. And so I think you couldn't have titled the entire project better, even though I wasn't really even thinking about what "be natural" meant, but it certainly makes sense now.
Yeah, I had a lot of pushback for that. People are like, oh, is that some kind of cosmetic product? What is that? And I was like,
Oh,
this is what the movie's going to be called, because that's a representation of who Alice was in her filmmaking. And, it's such a modern phrase, when I direct, whether it's a commercial or, doing stuff here and there, or other director colleagues, like, just be natural, just do it more naturally, just, don't overdo it, like tone it down, just act natural. So we hear it, and we don't realize, that this has been going on for such a long time, but it goes way back to Alice Guy Blaché in 1912 in her studio. It's wonderful.
yeah. We have another question from someone in the live Q&A. Did you come across much information about the rivalry between Elise and Lois Weber?
What I did, I put in the film.
Mm-hmm.
I know that Alice, she has one thing I would recommend. She has memoirs. They're in English. You can buy them on Amazon. They're very small. So it's kind of nice to watch it, to read them after the movie, because if you read them before, you probably wouldn't understand a lot of the stuff, but that's why it's great to watch it now. But she does hint at somebody possibly not telling the truth, and I think it is Lois Weber, because she was a very polite lady, so she wouldn't say anything directly, except for the letter that I found. But Alice didn't have the rivalry. It was Lois Weber, who was working as an actress.
Yeah.
Who, with Herbert and her, she taught her, and then she had an affair with her husband. So Alice can be very upset, as much as she wants, because she didn't really do anything. So, Hollywood drama.
Marty, I'm on mute. Excuse me. I'm trying to think if there was another with the speaking with her relatives. I got a sense that many of them they themselves didn't even realize the contributions that she had made. Did I assess that correctly?
Yes. I mean, the thing is, when it's something from such a long time ago, and an older person tells you and you're younger, you're like, oh, okay. you only process the information when you're older or later, and you forget, and you get married, you have family, etc. So, um, you know, once I started showing them the importance and showing them that the stuff that they had was extremely important, and reading from her memoirs and showing them her footage, etc. There's not a day that goes by that I don't hear from all these people on Facebook.
Oh,
Become, they become my family. I've become their family. It became very emotional,
For
uh,
sure.
emotional for me, because when you make a documentary, especially with something that happened such a long time ago, you connect with people, but you also lose people. A lot of
mm,
people that are in the film are no longer with us. So some of those family members are that are on screen are not there and not here anymore. So, um, but their legacy lives on screen, and that's why it's good to film them. Um, but yes, they were excited. They're grateful. They know about their roots, and it gets passed on to their children and grandchildren, which is wonderful.
And now archived really wonderfully as well, with the collection that MoMA has amassed, as well as others who are finally identifying that they have Solax films in their collection.
Yeah, and everybody should be looking. They should all continue to look. You never know. You don't ask, you don't get. Uh, I kept asking people to look for papers, documents, etc., and that's how you find new stuff, because it's not necessarily categorized. This is Alice Guy Blanchet. It's
mm.
Madame Blanchet, or Miss Elise, or completely misspelled, or mislabeled, etc. So that's what I wanted to show in the film, is doing research from a civilian point of view, that you have to be open and question everything, and if you're passionate and somebody sees that you're passionate, they'll look for you. They'll go the extra mile for you. They'll check something, because then it's exciting when you do find something, and it becomes a celebratory moment for everybody involved. It's changing history. It's pretty special.
I do have to ask the one question, since I was paying attention all the way through until the end, even during the credits. How was Hugh Hefner involved in this film?
It's a fantastic question. People assume that, yes, did he objectify women on Playboy? Absolutely. But he had a whole other side of his life in the private sector that he never advertised. He helped many women write books, make documentaries about uh, abortion, birth control, and women's rights, etc. And he's also a huge cinephile, and he was unhappy that he didn't know about her. And behind a man, there's always a woman who helps make it happen. So I had called USC Hugh Hefner Film Archives. Dino Everett is the head of it, who's in the film, and he gave me the number, and he's like, "I don't know what this is. Try it." Because I was like, "Oh, maybe Hugh Hefner might want to donate."
Oh, yeah.
And the number was to the mansion. So this poor man who answered had to listen to my whole story about Alice. And then he introduced me to this woman named Terry Thomerson, who is marketing publicity at Playboy. And we talked for 2 years about the film. I would call her 5 times a week for 2 years, until eventually she made it happen. She introduced me to Dick Rosenzweig, who is Hugh Hefner's partner. And we met, and I put together huge binders of scrapbooks of like every single thing that was in the film, all the new discoveries, etc. And he called me and he said, Hef is going to donate. How much do you need? And he became one of the largest donors.
Wow.
Wow.
That's incredible.
So that's nice. This movie changes history on so many fronts because of the people that are involved behind the scenes, and then the people that we're highlighting on screen that might have never been seen before.
Mm.
So it's exciting for me, anyway.
There's another great question from the live stream. This is from Brielle. She said, the doc certainly took lots of effort to gather sources and information. Was there ever a point And I'm sure Leslie can also understand this feeling as a curator, where you felt that you were digging through for so many lost films and material and it was fruitless.
Brielle, thank you for that question, and that's a very pretty name. Um, of course, there were times that actually uh, I thought, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. It's too hard. I have to raise the money. I have to, put this thing together. I never edited before. This is my first film. How am I going to survive financially? I don't know what to do. I just wanted to unplug the drives that were connected to my machine and just say, you know what, I'm done. It's over.
Yeah.
And, if it wasn't for the women that were involved, which were Jill and Dreyfus and Jamie Wolfe and Regina Scully and Joan Simon, who co-wrote the film with me, and Cosima Littlewood. The list is so long. Dino was there and Anthony Slide. They all really helped me to keep going. And I think that's the best advice I can give for that is anything that you do, you want to have people that really love you and honor your vision and want to help you move forward and get it done. And it's a selfless act to help people sometimes. I'm very lucky, but there were many times I wanted to give up. So there you go.
We're glad you didn't.
Absolutely. Well, and it seems you had a person who also never gave up on you, which was your narrator, Jodie Foster. I'm interested to know how Jodie was engaged in the project, and also kudos to her for having such a wonderfully practiced French accent. She just did a fantastic job.
She's wonderful. She went to the Lycée Française as a child. So that was perfect. And it was actually Joan Simon said, what about Jodie Foster? And I was like, oh my God, I forgot she spoke French. She's perfect. I had seen her in a Jean-Pierre Jeunet film, Very Long Engagement. It was probably one of the easiest processes. I knew somebody that knew her. I was possibly going to work on one of her films that she had directed. And I told her about this project. And next thing I know, she answers and says, all I can do is narrate. Yes, thank you. And she came, she narrated the trailer, my sales trailer. And then I didn't see her for 5 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we talked on email, etc. And many ups and downs of emails. And I'm sure many times I wanted to hide under my desk because I'm like, this woman is going to walk away. The movie is just it's not working. Like the cuts are terrible. Like I had stuff upside down in there because I didn't even know how to edit. And I was terrified. And she kept coming back with positive responses. So I said to myself, wow, I can't even get out of this now because I have to deliver. She stood by me the whole way. Then it went to Cannes, it went to Telluride, I went to London. She was there for the premiere. We went to Monaco together. Prince Albert gave her an award. And she came to Teaneck, New Jersey, to present the film. And she loves Alice. And she's been there. So I'm very, 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 very fortunate because I didn't just get a narrator. I got somebody that actually has experience in directing. And, it was, I learned a lot too.
That's really incredible. And I think that it also speaks to the power of partnerships. And you had the fortune of being able to partner with so many incredible film archives and collectors who really helped you along the way. Just like we're so grateful to have amazing partners like the Preservation Society working with us on this virtual screening and Q&A. And I just want to, as we wrap up tonight, I just want to remind people that if they haven't seen the film yet, they can still watch it tonight on newportfilm.com until midnight. So you can RSVP and you'll receive a special link. But if you miss it, or you have the opportunity to tell your friends about this amazing film, we want them all to watch it. So Pamela, where is the film available right now?
The film is available on Amazon Prime or on iTunes or on Fandango, Google Plus. I think you can even get it on YouTube. You have to purchase it.
Awesome.
And then if anybody wants a DVD, they can go to benaturalthemovie.com. They're a little bit more expensive, but part of that goes to setting up a foundation for Alice,
Oh,
so we can
great.
continue to preserve and restore her work.
That's amazing. Well, this has been a really wonderful treat. I'm so grateful to have been joined by both of you this evening. Leslie, thank you so much for co-moderating with me. It made it really fun. And Pamela, this has been such a wonderful treat for our viewers. I know that everyone has really been enjoying it, and we've been hearing great feedback. So thank you again so much. And everybody out there who's watching, we'd love for you to join us next Thursday. We're going to be changing things up a little bit with the timing because we're going to show an environmental film for Earth Week. So we're going to do our Q&A a little bit earlier in the night so that we hope some students can get involved. So check us out. Keep following us on Facebook and on our social media pages on Instagram and Twitter, and you will be able to find out more about our next film. So we'll see you next week. Thanks so much, you guys.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you, Pamela.